night was filled with guns and war, and everyone got trampled on the floor.
Let's talk the saga. Let's talk the story of the curtains. While I'm still basking in this, basking for so many reasons, but the main one is it just demonstrates to me just even further just how much the Lord is working in my life, and it's just another way where I can testify to that, just the glory of the Lord and just the change that's coming about within me. Before I do that, I just want to start off because it's very, very pertinent here with this story as I point out as we go through. The Bible verse of the day, it comes from the book of Colossians, chapter 4, verse 2. Continue in prayer and watch in the same with thanksgiving. It's very, very important to look back at what the Lord's done for you, and I think by the end of this you'll understand why this is really ringing true with me today. So I'll just give you a quick. I really want to, as I go through this, I'm conscious of time, because I could just go on all day about this, but I don't want to seem just like a complainer, because that's not what I'm doing. I want to give you a bit of a rundown as to exactly what happened, as to just to testify how the whole way it was the Lord. So I'll start again at the moon landing 2016. That's when I first started to wake up, if you like, back there in September 2016, when I learned the moon landing was a hoax. In the next year, it was August of the next year, so 2017, I got my big redundancy from Telstra, and then I got another job at Work Cover up in Brisbane within about a month. Good money, good conditions, all that, but I just didn't fit into that role, and they made me feel as though I was an outsider. I was belittled a fair bit, and I just didn't belong there. I just didn't click with anyone. I didn't belong there, so I resigned after a month, and then I got the job with Australia Post, which was just that and Teletech. Australia Post, that and Teletech were probably the two worst experiences I've ever had in my working life. Australia Post, I was just, from the day I walked in, it was just a horrible, horrible place to work. The team leader was just a nasty, nasty man. And back in these days, I'm still in that period of knowing truth, knowing the evils of the world. By now, I'm doing flat earth. I know about 9/11 and the Holocaust and all of it. Well, not all of it, but I'm learning a lot of truth by now, and I'm still in that wilderness. I'm still in that horrible period of knowing the ills of the world, but not knowing the Lord, and not even searching for the Lord at this point. The last day of my probation at Australia Post, I'm fired for making inappropriate comments in the workplace. They would never substantiate what these comments were and who made the complaint, and that's because it never happened, but I was just hounded out of the place. And then after that, I decided to come home, and I had about 4 months to go, 3-4 months to go on my lease at the place up in Toowong, and I decided to come home. So I told the lady that the property manager there. I told her. She took my $375 break lease fee. She said she was going to advertise the property, of which she never did. It took me a couple of weeks later to prompt her. And then she finally did it. But basically, from the moment I moved out of there, this lady just had it in for me, and she was trying to squeeze every last dollar from me. Now, everything that I've just spoken about and everything that I'm going to talk about was the Lord moving in my life. And as I prayed to the Lord this morning, thanking him for the whole saga of the curtains, I said to him, I can't believe I am thanking the Lord for the curtains. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, because when I moved out, it was basically it was May 9 last year, and I should get my bond back in the next couple of days. So it's basically going to be exactly a year late will this bond be. So the week that I arranged to come home was basically this week last year, and my lease wasn't up until mid-June, late June it was. It was actually the last week of June it was up. So I still had another, 2 months of rent still to pay. And I was coming home, and it was $375 a week, and I had been fired from a job, and I was at a point in my life where I couldn't find a job, and I couldn't hold down a job. I really wasn't interested in working anymore because I just kept getting. Well, I just had that really bad experience at Australia Post, and work cover wasn't great either. I wasn't feeling good about myself. I knew about all of these evils in the world. I still didn't know the Lord. By now, I was sort of searching for the Lord because I'm starting to think it has to be true. There can't be all this evil in the world and not have a higher being. And the Lord's always been in me looking back. But when I decided the week I was moving out, I was given this list of demands from the property manager. And you can see there it says Venetian blinds are clean and curtains washed or spot clean. So I saw that and I thought, well, that's strange, because if I don't execute every one of these on these list of demands here, well, I think it's pretty reasonable that I'm asked to either revisit the demand or I had part of my bond forfeited. So I thought it was quite strange. So I emailed her and just to get clarification about it. And it just said, you can see down the bottom there, if you have any queries regarding this notice of leave, please contact me via email. I did that and she just completely ignored me. So I got to a point where I was leaving. I had to go and the removalists were coming in. I had my flights booked and I had to make a decision. And this lady just wasn't responding to anything. And by now I was just like, she just wants every last dollar she can get out of me. And this time last year, I was a very, very angry man. I didn't know the Lord. I used to just blow up all the time when people, I used to just think anger will win me. When I hated injustice, I was always experiencing injustice. I was always experiencing, I always felt as though I was held up to a different level of account to everyone else. And I just, what's going on here? Like, she won't answer me and she's giving me this strange demand. So I washed them. And they were just completely destroyed. And when I rung her the next day, and she just straight away, she was just on the front foot saying, well, you have to pay for them. And she sent me quotes, and straight away there was just no, oh, well, I can see where the demand, no. I can see where the demand was a little bit tricky there, or the wording of it. No, nothing like that. Anyway, she just became just this money hungry grub. It just become really, really, really grubby. So anyway, I come home and I just had this hanging over my head, and then I thought to myself, about 2 weeks later, I thought, I haven't got my bond back yet. This is a bit strange. And so I rung up the bond place, and the lady said to me, she says, oh, Brett, she said, man, you're lucky. You're really, really lucky today that you rung today. I said, oh, why is that? And she said, well, because if you hadn't have rung today, your bond would have been forfeited. And I'm like, well, how can this be? So she's made a claim for my bond and nobody notifies me. And she said, yeah, that's the law. And she said, now that because she's made the claim on your bond first, that means she's at an advantage, and you now have to respond to her. And I said, well, how can this be? I don't understand. I've done nothing wrong, and she didn't answer me. She's the one that's heard because she gave me this letter. But anyway, I ended up having to go to a tribunal. And I'm leaving a lot out about this story, by the way. It's just in the interest of time, and I don't want to bore everyone. Because remember, this video is just about glorifying the Lord. It's about nothing else. It's just about glorifying the Lord. But I just want to give you some background of exactly what happened. So the first court date, so I didn't get my first day in the tribunal until the 1st of November. So it was a good 6 months after the event I had to wait for the first court case. And I had to put in all my paperwork, so every document that I had to put in, and it was literally, it's this thick, the pieces of paper I put in, the evidence I had. But because I was back down here, I couldn't put them in, so I actually had to get help from a tribunal, tenancy help place who help you when you've got these court cases. And the lady was lovely. She went down and she handed them all in for me. They're just a community backed organisation, and she handed all the documents in for me in person. And I had to wait then 6 months while my $1,500 was held up. And I'm like, what is going on here? I just don't understand. But anyway, I finally had my day in court, and I'm all geared up and I'm ready to roll, and I'm like, whoa, let's do this. They said, Brett, I can see that we've got all of your pieces of paper here, thank you. and they said to her, they said, have you got yours? And she just went, no, I haven't done that. She was really dismissive. So what do? They adjourned it. They adjourned the hearing because she hadn't followed the directions of the tribunal. And I was just like, how can this be? So I went to all of this effort. To put my paperwork in, but she didn't have to do hers. And I'm talking like this in the tribunal, and they ended up hanging up on me because they didn't like my attitude. And I'm like, what's going on here? So now, this was after June. So I found the Lord in June, but I was still in that period of, I say I was saved, but I wasn't born again yet, because I still had doubts on whether the Lord existed and all that, and whether it was all true. But I'd found Jesus, I was saved, but I wasn't reading the Bible yet, and I was still trying to get all of my information from others on YouTube and all that, from sermons and all this sort of stuff. I was basically doing everything to avoid reading the Bible at this point. So I had no idea about the gospel. I had no idea about any of it, and I was just still angry all the time, And looking back, they're probably justified in hanging up on me, but they just didn't like me asking questions, and they didn't like the questions I was asking. So anyway, so by now I'm thinking, I know what's going on here. She's trying to hold this up in this tribunal just for as long as she possibly can. To make sure, so she's relying on me not attending a hearing, not putting something in on time, and because I actually had to pay an extra $125 just to be heard at this tribunal. So you can imagine my reaction when I just blew up. I just lost the plot. I went, you've got to be kidding me. Now I've got to pay. And so I was in a really, really bad place. But anyway, I had, by now I was working. I was working at Teletech at Gosford. Now, Teletech is that place where I worked at, where I just sat there for 11 weeks. They gave me no work tools. They gave me no job. They gave me no tasks. They openly belittled me on the floor. And the reason they fired me, because I said to the guy who hired me, I said, well, how would you react if I started treating this lady the way she's treating me? He saw that as a threat, so he fired me. And that's how my life was going at the time. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? It's the Lord. The whole time, it's the Lord. And this is him leading me out of bondage. But I'm just being an Israelite in the wilderness, because I was in the wilderness, and I just didn't know what was going on. I'm like, what? But the whole time it was the Lord. Anyway, while I was working there, get this, I had a good couple of days, and the guy gave me a couple of jobs to do, and it was just to shut me up. It was just a sugar hit, and I did these jobs, and they were pointless. There was no sense to them, and I fulfilled them, and I felt good while I was doing them, but he didn't care. He didn't follow up. He wasn't interested in me doing the jobs. This is a Teletech at Gosford. He wasn't interested in what I'd found out. It was just to shut me up. But anyway, I was feeling good over these 2 days, so I decided to look for a house, and I found this really nice place in Gosford. It was $390 a week, and I thought, oh well, I'm just going to lap it up. I'm going to live in luxury for 6 months. So I applied for it. But anyway, I didn't get it. They rejected me, and I'm like, wonder why? I don't get this, because I never get rejected. I've never been rejected for a place ever before, because of my age, and I had a steady income, but they just rejected me for no reason given. I'm like, and I thought, I wonder if it's because I've got this bond. I've got this bond matter up before the tribunal. And I spoke to a couple of people, and they're like, yeah, I reckon it was that. And I thought, yeah, it was that too. Anyway, a week or so later, the whole thing at Teletech blows up, and I lose my job. I mean, imagine if I got that place. I was $390 a week without an income, and so at the time I was staying. My accommodation was settled, and it was very cheap where I was staying, it was the best thing for me to stay there, Anyway, the second hearing comes up. This is on November 1, so I wasn't working by now, and I had no desire to work because I'd had work cover, I'd had Australia Post, and then I'd had Teletech, and I'm like, all right, here we go again. Let's have this second hearing for these curtains. Anyway, the lady decides, she says, I can see I've got a conflict of interest here, and she says, I used to own a property at this residence, at this complex. And I'm like, really? Give me strength, man. This is November 1, this happened. I'm like, give me strength. You can't be serious. And she said, we're going to adjourn because of this. And I said to her, I said, look, I said, clearly you're not scoping your cases. I said, because if you hadn't been scoping your cases, you would have known this. I said, I've been waiting now for 6 months. 6 months now I've been waiting to be heard about this bond. I've got a piece of paper here that says the words curtains and wash next to each other. Nobody wants to know. And now you're telling me that you're adjourning because of a potential conflict of interest. And she said, Brett, she said, it's in your best interest. She said, I'm only doing it in your best interest. So I said, I don't care. I said, I don't feel as though I'm at a disadvantage. I'm happy to proceed. She says, well, I'm not comfortable in proceeding. I said, well, you don't scope your cases. I said, because all you have to do was have a look at what the property was and where it was, and you would have known. Anyway, they adjourned it. And again, they just hung up on me because they didn't like my attitude. They didn't like the questions I was answering. I was asking. Fast forward to yesterday, so we have Christmas, and Christmas is when I was truly born again. And those of you who have been with me for a while can see how I've grown in the Lord. So I'm sitting here yesterday just waiting for this phone call to come through because they dialed me in because I'm in a state. And I'm just sitting here just waiting for it to come through. And I'm reflecting on the Bible verse of the day, which remember came from Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. So basically that's telling me just trust me, trust me, Brett, trust me. I've been through it all. I know what I'm doing. I'm now in control of your life, and this is the best thing that's ever going to happen to you. So this is yesterday now. So I'm absolutely, by now, I know that everything has happened has been the Lord just taking me out of bondage and teaching me lessons and teaching me about the gospel, right? So I'm waiting for this phone call, and now I'm just completely calm, just completely calm. Now, get this. When they ring up, they say, we've got so-and-so the owner present, and we've got so-and-so who manages the property now present. And they said because the reason why they're here and not the lady is because she no longer works there. And I'm like, oh, I wonder why she doesn't work there anymore. And I'm thinking the only thing that makes sense to me right now is she's been found out. She's been found out to be a fraud, and she's been engaging in fraudulent behaviour, because that hearing yesterday, it just took no time at all. The whole thing took about 10 minutes. The two people weren't prepared. They had no evidence. They had nothing to back themselves up. And that's what the tribunal guy said. He says, do you have any supporting evidence at all which would make me not award this to Brett? And they just go, no. And that was it. It was all over. And now I just wait. And that money, that $125 that I had to pay to be heard, they actually asked me if I could forfeit that, if I could just overlook that. And I said to him, look, everything that this lady's put me through and all of these hearings that I've had to go through, all of it. And now you want me to forfeit because I've had to pay now to be heard? No. I said, I'm sorry, no. Now, I feel as though the Lord wanted me to do that because he has, he's shown me all this, and he's allowed me to have that bond back. And I just thought, no, it's not right. It was my money, and I should not have been charged it. It was just wrong. And the tribunal guy actually agreed. He said, Brett, he says, yes. He said, I agree. You should not have to pay that money. And then that was it. The whole thing was finished. It was done. A year later, the whole thing was done. So what did I learn? What did I learn from the Lord over this time? I've learned a lot, guys. I've learned a lot. One, not necessarily in this order. I've learned that, yes, I am held up to a different set of standards to everyone else, and I have not been imagining it over all these years. Why? It's because the world doesn't like me. Why doesn't the world like me? It's because the world didn't like Jesus, and I walk with Jesus. Now, the world doesn't just not like me because when I glorify his name or when I talk about him. No, it's because I am part of the elect, as are you. And that's why some days our walk, brothers and sisters, is hard. It's because the world has rejected us. That's why we've got no friends. That's why we're isolated. But it's okay. It's good, because it means we are with Jesus and we're with the Lord. We're in this world and we are the remnant of society. So this is good news. For me, it's really, really good news. My goodness gracious me, what has it taught me about love thy neighbour? In my heart of hearts, I went and talked to my family about this just now about it, and they said, "Oh, I reckon you could have a civil case here." And I said, "No." I said, I hold no ill will towards her at all. Everything that happened between me and her is not between me and her, it's between her and the Lord. And I really feel as though the Lord has sorted her out in this instance, because she no longer has that job there. And I believe she's probably now in the wilderness herself, because she's been found out, and it's between her and the Lord. I do not hate her. I don't hold any ill will towards her at all. Love. This is the part that I do struggle with, because what is love? I don't understand what love is. I believe it's an emotion that has been corrupted, that has been hijacked by the Freemasons, by the Satanists that run the world. So I don't know what this love is, but I certainly hold no ill will. I don't dislike her. I forgave her a long, long time ago. It's also, trust me, it's also taught me to trust the Lord. You must trust the Lord with what he's doing. Don't second guess the Lord. Absolutely ask him for discernment. Why, Lord? Why is all this going on? But you must trust him at every turn, because you come out at the end. You just come out at the end and it all just makes sense. Don't play the victim. Just don't play the victim, because we almost are the victim, aren't we, here in the elect? Almost, but not quite, because we are the ones on the side of truth. We are the ones that are right. We are the ones who are just trying to get right with the Lord, that are using our lives, our opportunity here on earth, this courtroom, this grand courtroom, this place where we get this opportunity, this second chance and this final chance to get right, to cleanse ourselves, in the glory of Jesus, to get ourselves back to that state that we were in the garden, back to being to one of the sons of God. Don't pray for outcomes, but for understanding. This is a huge part of it, guys. This is absolutely a huge part of it. When I prayed to the Lord yesterday, I said, look, I know I shouldn't be praying for outcomes, Lord, but I will tell you, I do want to win today, because if I do win, the whole lesson just makes complete sense, what you've done over the last 12 months, how you've worked in my life with this particular subject, with everything that's gone on. It would just round it out, and it would make complete and utter sense to me. So please don't think I am praying for an outcome, but I'm just telling you this is the outcome that I would like. But no matter the outcome, it's in your grace. It is your will, and it's only for my benefit. It's only for to make me better, because that's all the Lord wants for me. He just wants me to get bigger in his name, greater in the word, stronger in the word, and you've just got to trust him with every single thing that happens. But when the outcome came through, I was absolutely elated, because the way it happened, the guy just laughed it out of his tribunal. I was just waiting for him to hear the words, "Get this nonsense out of my tribunal." I was just waiting for him to say those words, because they just had no case. It was wafer thin, and it was about her. It was about the Lord, and the Lord ensnared me in it, just to get me to take all of these lessons and to get stronger, just to get stronger in the gospel. And this is the main reason why I've got so much stronger in the gospel over the last few months, guys, is because of this lesson of the curtains. It's not about me and her, and that's how you've got to do it. That's how you've got to look at things, to try to get close with this love thy neighbor part of the gospel. It is part of the 2 commandments. Love the Lord with all of your heart, with all of your mind, with all of your soul. That is the first and biggest commandment. And the second commandment is likened unto that. Love thy neighbor as you love yourself. And if you can do this, if you can do it in this way, where it's between them and the Lord, not between me and them, you will go a long way to fulfilling this part of the gospel, not because you have to, it's because you want to. The Lord just takes that burden off you, and you just feel so much better inside. And with all of that angst that's gone out of your spirit, that's gone out of your soul, you can replace that with the glory of the Lord, and trying to get stronger and bigger in the word. You must always look back. Always look back on what the Lord has done for you and look at everything in the big picture. I say on this channel often, don't lament what you don't know today. Celebrate what you do know today as a result of yesterday, and celebrate what you will know tomorrow as a result of today. You must look back at everything that the Lord's done for you. You must look at everything in a holistic point of view, and you must give thanks. You must always give thanks for the Lord with everything that he's done, even though the lessons can be hard at the times, because he does some strange things, doesn't he, at the time? He can inflict illness on us. He can do all sorts of things, inflict all sorts of angst. All of the angst that have been inflicted on my life over the years, that have taught me the lessons, that have made me the man that I am today, the man that I need to be to fulfill my calling within the Lord, to be the warrior in the Lord that I am today, that I'm going to be tomorrow and in the future years. You've got to look back at all of these events that hurt at the time and just go, wow, Lord, you are, and you're just the best. You're just the mightiest of God. I fear you so much. I just fear his wrath. I just could not imagine not having him on my side now, not having him with me. I just couldn't imagine him. So I'd just go back into the world and I'd just be a shell of a man, and it'd just be over for me if I didn't have the Lord. I can't look back now. I've just got to look forward, and all of that. That just makes me think what I'm going to be within the Lord. I'm reading Deuteronomy at the moment. It's just knocking my socks off. The Anak, the giants, and they're taller than the Israelites, which is interesting. Maybe I need to revisit a few things. I don't know. But the Anak, so I'm up to chapter 10, 11 now. It's an amazing book, Deuteronomy. But yeah, always look back at what the Lord has done with you with thanks, which I will round out this video in with the verse of the day. I'll come back to it again. Colossians 4:2, continue in prayer and watching the same with thanksgiving. I'm full of the Holy Spirit here today, my brothers and sisters. I cannot believe the works that the Lord's doing in my life now. It just goes on by the day. I feel truly and utterly blessed, and I just wished everybody else on earth could experience this, because it's better than any feeling I've ever experienced before. And I just know it's going to get better in the future, because the more you seek, the more you will receive. The more light you want, the more light you will get. The more wisdom you seek, the more wisdom you will gain. All power and all glory goes to Jesus Christ, the Lord, our Saviour, our King.
Time to change your mind, the sun has come, you've been left behind.